How are you keeping your growing data under control? Storage and networking writer Simon Sharwood sums up the options as being like deciding between vacuum bags or more cupboards.
Well, with these kinds of situations then, Brian, perhaps you can take this one. How are we keeping this kind of data under control? What are the key ways?
So there's a couple of things you can look at. Virtualization to make better utilisation of your resources, to deploy them more efficiently. And then there's functions within that, such as compression, so you can reduce the bulk of the data. And with compression you can drop your data usage down by up to 80%, depending on the types of workloads.
So tell us a bit more about virtualization. So
virtualization's aimed at putting an abstraction layer in between the servers and the storage. So to store at a server level, the people who administer the environment don't need to be aware of the underlying storage. So storage can be moved, volumes can be moved from one device to another. And typically you'd have multiple storage platforms at the back end, and you can migrate data non-disruptively. So that means that the host doesn't need to take an outage. So you don't need to plan for business outages like that. So massive benefit back to the business organisations.
And how does compression work?
So compression looks at the stream of data coming into the storage environment. And what we do is we strip out data, similar to what you would do with PK unzip and compression algorithms that you use every day for your email. But we do that at an industrial level using patented devices.
I think a great way to understand compression is to consider that a professional photographer uses, hoofing great cameras that capture astounding quantities of information every time they take a shot. Now, my wife's kind of a semi-professional photographer, and each shot that she takes is 12 megabytes, and that's quite a lot. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with, the JPEG file format. What the JPEG file format does is it takes all of that information and turns it into something that's about 1 megabyte. And the JPEG experience, to you and me, to the naked eye, to somebody who's turning it into a brochure or a nice photo to put on the mantelpiece, that experience is still pretty good. And that just illustrates that you don't always have to have all the data that's been captured. You can shrink it down and keep the good bits that make a difference and still operate with it perfectly happily.
So Joe, perhaps you can give us some examples. Have you worked with some clients where you've been able to implement these solutions, and what have the outcomes been?
Look, there's a variety of clients from large to small, and I think you need to have a look at what they're trying to achieve. If we talk about some of the smaller clients where they have a variety of data, let's pick for example email content, going back to that same subject. If they then have the ability to leverage deduplication technology to have the one piece of information stored, and then all the other backups and all the other pieces of repository that they're keeping are just pointing back to that one piece of original email, that alone saves tremendous amounts of storage in the back end. Considering other things like compression, when you're doing it inline data compression to allow you to only back up the critical pieces of information onto the storage device, this then allows greater utilisation of the disk capacity that you have. And really simplistically thinking about it, we talk about virtualisation, we talk about deduplication and compression, but at the end of the day for a client, it's looking, I have data, I need that available to me, and I want it simply stored at the best function and capability to reduce my total cost. Because one of the things clients really don't want to do is consistently spend a lot of investment dollars on high cost storage just to cater for all this repository and all this data that we're keeping.
Another way to think about this, Valerie, is to think about those vacuum storage bags that some people put their clothes in. I don't know if you use them, but a lot of people, the season changes, they'll take their winter stuff, they put it in this vacuum bag, they vacuum it, shrinks down, and then they go and put it somewhere so they can take it out the next time that it gets cold. Now, the alternative to doing that is buying more cupboards. And who's got space for more cupboards? Maybe you go buy a new house. It's the same with storage. If you can reduce the amount of data, the amount of disk space that you're using, then that's great because you don't have to go and buy more disk.